Welcome to the Wonder of WOO podcast, where we highlight how businesses can scale profitably by serving others well. I'm Darryl Zavadny.
And I'm Ed Howie.
And this is
the Wonder of WOO. If you're a business owner investing time, money, and marketing only to be frustrated by losing customers, then this podcast is for you.
Now, Ed, the Wonder of WOO podcast really celebrates the rewards of serving others well in business and in life. And it doesn't just feel good, it's actually good business.
I mean, it is not only profitable for your business, for your enterprise, it is profitable in life. And I mean, isn't that what's really most important?
Yeah, it is indeed. Well, so before we get too far down the line, I think it's important for our community to sort of calibrate on, all right, what are we talking about with the title, The Wonder of WOO? For quick recap purposes, what is the Wonder of WOO? What is WOO?
For sure. So WOO is winning others over and over. You may have heard WOO with 2 O's. Ours has 3. And the reason is that while it takes intention, it takes work, it takes commitment to win others over, it takes a lot more to win others over and over. Think about those long-lasting friendships, those long-lasting relationships, those long-lasting brands you love. It is they're intentionally serving you well. We're intentionally serving others well, and we're doing it over and over again. And not only does that create greater revenue, it really is the foundation of trust.
Well, Ed, today's episode is entitled Start with an Eye Exam. And
okay.
I've got my readers on, my cheaters. You've got your glasses. So obviously with our community, we're not just talking about your glasses. We're talking about a different kind of vision. Let's talk about what we're talking about.
Yeah. So, any business person has heard you need a vision statement, right? Mm-hmm. And you get a consultant like me come in and we'll walk you through a vision statement, a mission statement. And that is all very much part of the process. We're talking about this much broader. Mm-hmm. We're talking about, as the business leader, as the entrepreneur, as the owner, as the family member, mm-hmm. as the community member of an enterprise, that if there is not clarity of where you're going, I mean, it is trite, it is a cliche, but how do you know you got there? Right. First and foremost. And so what we're talking about with your eye exam is that, have you taken the time to truly visualize what it is you're intending to build? We both believe what it is God has put you on this earth to do.
Right.
But what is your vision? Why does this all matter? And where are you heading towards? Where are you trying to take things?
Right. And as you're talking about that, I'm reminded of, I think it's Alice in Wonderland, the Cheshire Cat, right? So she comes up to the crossroad and says, well, how do I get there? And she's like, and he says, well, if you don't know where you're going, any destination will do.
That's right.
And so it's kind of the same thing in business and in life, right? There's this sense of hey, you can have the best of intentions. You can actually operationalize them. You can orchestrate it very well. And if you're headed down the wrong path, it matters not. So
well, and I mean, and sometimes our lack of vision is well intended. I mean, when I left corporate America, when I left HEB to start B2I Creative, it wasn't about how big a company I was going to build. It wasn't about how many employees I wanted or didn't want. It wasn't even about how many clients I wanted. It was more about what I wanted to do and the impact I wanted to have on others. Mm-hmm. However, without having clarity of what I was building to, we were not intentional in doing all the things to enable us to scale. We're talking about scaling in business and life.
Sure.
And so I believe that you must, I'll say define, but also divine. You must sense, really is, with this opportunity, what is it ultimately becoming, and why does that matter?
Sure. Yeah, and I think B2I is a great example. Your agency, obviously we can reflect or pull any number of examples from the business world. Our community can likely think about these examples of somebody who's done it very well, and planned a course and kind of planned their work and worked their plan, and some people who have not. Any examples in life that we can think of? I mean, to me, Walt Disney comes to mind.
Oh yeah,
as just somebody who,
you talk about someone who is a true visionary,
right? And had a vision for creativity and imagination and a different way of engaging with people, but but continued to evolve. Andy Stanley, one of my favorite speakers and authors, kind of says that you should marry the mission and date the method, right? That you say, hey, this is where we're going. I'm married to this. This is clarity, but how we get there, might change. It certainly has at BTY, I'm sure.
Well, yeah, it sure has. I mean, I will tell you, without having without having a clear vision of what I wanted to build the business in 20 years, I now know 21 years into it, basically, that I could have built something even more robust with my team. We could have impacted even more brands, even more businesses than we did, and we could have done it more effectively. We could have been better stewards of it. And so we have been working the last 2 or 3 years to optimize, to reset exactly what it is we're trying to build in the next 10 years. And I mean, we're putting some really strong metrics around them so that we know when we get there. And we're able to do that with it only being about just the final net profit $1. It is really much more about impact, which is obviously what we believe the greatest outcome of our vision needs to be, is ultimately in the way we impact the world.
Right.
So think about Walt Disney. I mean, as I understand it, as the story goes, that and I believe it was, I may have this wrong, whether it's Disneyland or Walt Disney World, because I get them all confused, because I just thought there was one for 30 years.
Yeah.
But my understanding is a great deal of the parks were all drawn out. And so what evolved over 30, 40, 50 years was not, this is his vision and now let's do other things. My understanding is it was a very well architected, if that's the word.
Sure. Yeah.
Right? Is that what you understand?
Yeah.
And so the fact that there was a Hollywood area or whatever it's called, that was seen as the potential. And that's way more than saying I want to start an amusement park. Because what he did is his vision, as I understand it, was hyper meticulous.
Right.
It was not just about the mode of commerce. It wasn't about that we're going to sell tickets and we're going to sell T-shirts and we're going to sell balloons and Mickey Mouse is going to be there. But I mean, they're known for the experience they deliver. And I believe more times than not, I mean, they've been in the news a lot, but more times than not, their impact is happiness. And just think, if there hadn't been a clear vision, what could have been built? What could have ended up?
Right. Sure. Well, I think for our community, Ed, it's important to, maybe even calibrate and say, in all likelihood, you aren't building, maybe you aren't building the next Disney World. Maybe you are. Is there application, right? So the intent of this is to really be deeply pragmatic and say, okay, that's awesome that Walt Disney had that, and we now see the benefit of what Disney is. I think for me, the question is, okay, business leader, you either have a vision and you're running that play and it's great, or you don't. And so what do we do there, right? Yes.
So the title is, start with an eye exam. Well, what does that look like? Well, as we were sitting here talking, another thought came in my mind about what an eye exam has been in my life. And I think we both hold this instrument in high regard, and that's StrengthsFinder. StrengthsFinder is a methodology. Originally with Marcus Buckingham. The first book was Now Discover Your Strengths, now StrengthsFinder 2.0. But StrengthsFinder is an exam, a self-administered exam of yourself.
Yeah.
To help reveal to you, right, exactly what your strengths are. What we believe is how God designed you. For example, my 5 top strengths are ideation, strategic, winning others over with 2 O's and 3, connectedness, and positivity. That vision of knowing what it was the impetus for the business model that created B2I Creative. Because the worst thing we could do is have this idea, this vision, of like, say, a vision without clear focus and acuity, right?
Right.
We can have this vision, I want to do this, but we're not necessarily equipped to do that. And so what I like about the ideation of vision is there also needs to be intel on alignment with your calling, your capacity, what brings you joy, what brings you happiness. Because we can all come up with a ton of different business models. the key, I think, where a lot of entrepreneurs, business leaders struggle is it is a great business model, but it's not the right fit for me. It's like having glasses with the wrong prescription.
Yeah, and I think that's a wonderful analogy. I was going to keep that analogy going. I love that you've done that and modeled that for me, for our community. It is to say, hey, if sometimes things look blurry, you're reading the number chart, the eye chart, you can't make those letters out, it might make sense to have a legit eye exam. Maybe you're wearing the wrong prescription. Maybe it's an old prescription. Maybe you're wearing somebody else's glasses.
Yeah.
And you need to find the correct prescription for you as a leader to say, what does it look like to have great vision? Because the results are monstrous. You talked about this with BTY even in this stage where you're 17 years in or you're 20 years in and you're saying, I need to rethink how to change our prescription just a little bit.
Oh, I mean, we have optimized, imagine that, third O. We've been optimizing not only the processes, but we've been optimizing exactly how we retool the product offering we offer our customers. We've been optimizing exactly understanding who are the customers that we best serve and are best served by us, who are the customers that we're most profitable for and they're most profitable for us. And it has created a much clearer vision for our entire team of not only who we're serving and who we want to serve, but how we're serving them. And it's also given us clarity on who we're not best equipped to serve. Because think about it. What business owner doesn't need marketing help? I mean, whether you invest it or not, whether you believe in it or not, every business needs marketing, right? So it's not like there's a lack of potential customers. That's probably the same for you, leader, is that you look at your business, and I'm not talking about customers. I'm not talking about competition. I'm talking about like demand. If you had the right vision, or at least inceptive vision, if you will, to start something, you probably did it because you believed there was a market there. So the fact that our vision is what is really kind of the agitator, instigator for where we're headed, we got to constantly be rechecking our eyes. Because I don't know about you, but my eyesight is not the same it was 10 years ago.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's a great reminder. There's an eye exam usually about every year for me. And every time I go, I think, geez, I'm getting old. And, it's changing, and it's important for my prescription to stay current is the point. And I'm encouraged that you did that. I think for our community, the application is, okay, so what does that look like for you? When was your last eye exam? Are you actually wearing the glasses? Have you encouraged the others on your team to do the same thing? It is not too late to get back and do that eye exam. What I love about the BTY example is a couple of things. First of all, there was a choice to engage, even though you'd been in business for decades. There was a choice to go back to the eye doctor.
That's right.
And
to include the team in it, not just it being because as a founder, as entrepreneur, the foundation of what we built is what my wife and I visualized back in 2003, but we've had a lot of key stakeholders in that since that day. And the team now, I believe, is not only more clear on what we're going after, but also more confident in the role they play in that.
Right. Well, and so they've got their own eye exam as a part of that. And I would imagine there's emotion connected to the exam, right? Yeah, it's like, for me, it would be there's a sense of hope or clarity.
Right.
And maybe even a sense of regret or like, maybe there's some stuff that I missed. And so this informs this, you
it does.
Talked about, not having.
I think to your point is what is great there is there's accountability too. We all want to win. We want to win at business. We want to win at life. But if there's not a clear vision of what the definition of win is in the context of that specific thing, to realize is that there are many things that were really good about what we were building and built at B2I Creative. There were many things that were opportunities. What we've done is, with greater clarity, we have even more clearly defined what winning looks like.
Right.
And when you know what winning looks like, it's a lot easier to go after the win.
Right. That's great. And leader, that's our prayer for you, that you would have significant clarity of what winning looks like, that you would understand how that vision is connected to winning, how you can actually have real clarity on that. And again, the application is really for any business, right? I want to be specific on this for our community. We're not talking about just a marketing services firm or a branding firm or whatever. This has application to any business and candidly any person in life.
Really, I mean, there's a whole overlay of business. There's a whole overlay of life. You know, we talk about cycling a good bit because I teach indoor cycling. As you know, we're doing that tomorrow. And it was very interesting. I was in a class on Monday morning this week in Atlanta, and they had all these meters up. It was a club that I don't teach at. And it was very interesting. Funny story. I won't use his name, but there was a guy in front of me, and I was planning on kind of hanging back, and he was like all in. And so I was like, I'm going to be all in. Well, there were all these drills we did. And at the next last drill, he was done. You could just tell he was winded. He ended up actually walking out of the class early. He wasn't hurt, but he was done. And me revving up for the last drill without him as my mark of was I winning or was I at least pacing, was a lot more difficult.
Yeah.
Because all of a sudden it was just my performance. So there was no other context to pull me that way. But here's the question about winning, which I think is where the real mature clarity and vision comes in. The real like peace-giving, joyful perspective on life comes in. So get down to the locker room, and he's kind of hunched over. And I walked over and said, "You okay?" He said, "Yeah, man." He said, basically, partied a little bit too much last night. It was a long weekend, and I just had no more in my tank.
Mm-hmm.
So here's a really bizarre question. His vision was to show up and work out. My vision was to show up and work out. We both were clearly wanting to optimize the experience.
That's good.
I didn't have the handicap of having had too much alcohol or too much food the night before.
Right.
He had a greater challenge or governor on him.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that he beat me for the part of class he was in there because he was going against greater odds than I was. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so our vision has to have context. And this is me speaking as a 57-year-old to my 27-year-old self. I have got to have a vision that's governed in context. Would you agree with that?
Certainly. Absolutely. Yeah. I think it's important to understand in any of our community, your vision is your vision. I think that's what you're saying.
It is.
You have to contextualize your opportunities, your barriers, and we've talked about this in episodes past, and be specific to the opportunity you have, to steward the opportunity you have. And that's what, perhaps this gentleman did, is stewarded it magnificently.
I can't believe he did what he did, right? And that's where, I know our community is all ages. I know we have a community of folks that are in business, that are not, which is a joy, and we honor the time y'all give us. The last thing I'll share is that we're talking about eye exam. And even though I've not lived in Atlanta for 20 years, my eye doctor is still in Atlanta. And that makes no sense. But anyway, so I'm going to totally blow the medical description, but let's see. Nearsighted means you can't see far, right? Yes, nearsighted means you can't see far. So since junior high, I've been nearsighted, I've worn glasses, contacts. And then, 3 days into my 45th birthday, I started needing readers to where I couldn't always see what was up close. So my farsightedness, my ability to see close was getting more challenging. So I went to multifocal contacts, multifocal lenses. Well, here's the deal, is that in some cases with nearsightedness, it is not necessarily linear degenerative. And so even though my ability to read things up close clearly has declined a bit, my farsightedness, my ability to see far has actually improved. Is that weird?
Yeah.
And so our belief is that over time things degenerate. I'm here to tell you, it doesn't. And that's the hopefulness for any of us. If you set off on the wrong vision, it is not too late to reset it. But I believe that can be sometimes the greatest stewardship.
Right. Well, leader, we hope you are encouraged by your time with us today. We hope you perhaps have a next step. That might be get an eye exam. It might be give yourself a break. Understand that you are working as a good steward of what you have. It might be to not be discouraged by the fact that maybe you're losing in some part of vision but gaining in another, as Ed was talking about. It's our hope and prayer, as always, that this time encourages you to serve others well. We do believe that businesses can scale profitably by doing that. And every time we close episodes, we talk about the same thing, and you have a deep, deep conviction, as do I. And what is that related to WOOO?
Yes, that everyone wants WOOO.
Indeed. We look forward to seeing you next time at the Wonder of WOOO podcast, and we thank you for joining us.
So that's it for today's episode of The Wonder of WOOO. Head on over to Apple Podcast or wherever you listen to subscribe to our show. One lucky listener every single week who posts a review on Apple Podcasts will win a chance in the grand prize drawing to win a $25,000 value private VIP day with Darryl and me. Be sure to head on over to thewonderofwoopodcast.com and pick up a free copy of our gift. And please join us next time.